Hello and welcome to another episode of Subjectively Correct, the podcast where two movie-loving pals pick movies according to random themes and then compare experiences and tastes. My name is Matt and I'm with my friend Josh.
Hello.
The wheel of circumstance, the wheel of fate, has decided that we will talk today about bottle movies, so-called bottle movies, which are defined by a very, very limited number of locations. Ideally, only one location for the majority of the film. So that's what we are focusing on today. This is one of my personal favorite subgenres in the movie world, to be honest. Yeah, I kind of just love. Well, we all know the old ass saying of limitations breed creativity and whatnot. And I feel like limiting physically the location of a story really forces the writers to put down interesting characters and dynamics. And the, I guess, direction and cinematography has to really make an effort to, in most cases, capture this one location in an interesting way. I like these sort of elements in filmmaking, I think. So always dope when I see a movie all just play out in one location.
Yeah.
Our two movies are, we will get to that, of course, but our two movies have, one is a bit more open than the other, a bit more open one location than the other, which is also going to be interesting, I feel.
Just not to jump too far ahead, but which one do you think is more open than the other, like yours or mine?
I would say yours is more open. Okay. Let's take that as a segue, I guess, to talk into your to go into your film, which is also appropriately named after more than one location. You could argue. So please go ahead with your film.
So, the film, I've loved this film forever, and so this was kind of like a good opportunity just to bring it because why not? It's the film called 4 Rooms from 1995. This is kind of like I always think of it as like an all-star movie because it's called 4 Rooms. It takes place in a hotel on New Year's Eve, and it focuses on what happens in 4 rooms in the hotel, funnily enough. So it's a bottle movie in the sense that it's all in one location, being the hotel. Yeah. But as Matt said, it does move around because it's literally split up into 4 different locations, I guess, within the hotel itself. So, and each one is its own story because, interestingly enough, each room in the hotel is written and directed by a different director. So they even have a bit of a different vibe between each room. They have obviously different actors and that sort of thing. There's a little bit of crossover here and there, which kind of makes it interesting. However, it's very much 4 separate stories that are all tied together because we're following the one character who is played by Tim Roth, who is the hotel's bellhop. And it's his first night on the job, but it's New Year's Eve. So the story is crazy things ensue as he, works in the hotel and encounters the customers who are in these particular rooms. So just going over, there's 4 different directors. There's Alison Anders, who I know from the movie Paris, Texas, was probably her biggest thing. There's Alexandra Rockwell, who did In the Soup, which is like an early 90s indie film that I think was one of Steve Buscemi's first films. One of those kind of interesting indie, kind of almost art school level kind of films. And then it jumps up into some pretty big names that we all know, because there's Robert Rodriguez does one of them. And if you don't know who he is, he's famous from doing the El Mariachi series, from Dusk Till Dawn. He did the Spy Kids series. He did Sin City. He did Planet Terror. He's worked a lot with Quentin Tarantino, who, interestingly, is the last director who does The Final Room. And he also actually stars in it too as a character himself. So obviously Quentin Tarantino, if you don't know who that is, do a little Google. You should recognize one of his films somewhere. But it kind of goes without saying who Quentin Tarantino is these days. And across those rooms, there's a bunch of different stars. So there's heaps of actors that I could name, but I'm not going to name them all. But just to run through a few of the bigger names that I know anyway, we've got Tim Roth, as I said, who's in the lead role, Madonna, Ione Skye, David Prouvel, Jennifer Beals, Antonio Banderas, Tamlin Tomita, Kathy Griffin, Marissa Tomei, Quentin Tarantino, as I said before, Paul Calderon, and Bruce Willis. And interesting enough, for some reason, Bruce Willis is uncredited in the credits, but hey, that's cool. So yeah, essentially it's 4 separate stories that Tim Roth's character as the bellhop encounters. So it's almost like 4 separate little short films, but there are some like crossovers here and there and everything. Like at one point in one room, there's the characters receive a phone call and it's from one of the other rooms that we're later going to go to, or there's a mix up between certain things, and you realize how it ties together as you kind of go through multiple stories. There's one character who shows up in, I think, the second room and then also in the final room as well. And yeah, it's just it's one of those films that's just kind of entertaining for the sake of it, I think, and it's not necessarily doing anything profound. It's not trying to make a huge moral point. It's just making an interesting and entertaining story or series of stories from multiple different directors. And you get a bit of a different vibe in each room as it is. So, yeah, without spoiling anything, I don't want to necessarily go into the stories in each room too much, but it's interesting. I think in each room you can kind of tell the director's style and everything, especially with ones that we know a lot better now, like Rodriguez or Quentin Tarantino. Like Rodriguez's story in, I think if I've got it written down somewhere, I think he does Room 309, where basically Antonio Banderas goes out and leaves his kids at home, and all manner of shit hell breaks loose, and the whole place ends up burning down. And so the effects and the practicals and all that kind of stuff to me speaks very much like a Rodriguez film, and feels very much like his kind of direction and writing, for that matter, I guess. And similarly, like the Quentin Tarantino room at the, I think it's at the penthouse of the hotel, it's very dialogue heavy. It's very self-referential in the way that the characters are talking about other films, and they're actually playing film makers who have done well. And the whole style of that scene is very Tarantino, because it's like talk. There's a bunch of really long one shots in that scene, and you can kind of just get the vibe of that director. And then dialing it back to, like, one of my favorites is the second story, which is Room 404, which is Alexandra Rockwell's story. And it's very different as well, because it's quite surreal and nonsensical in a way, and very much it kind of drives you a bit insane, I suppose, because it's a bit of an insane story. But then I was, I love the first one as well, and the first one's about a coven of witches who are trying to, bring an old goddess back to life, and they need a few things here and there. But yeah, it's just a really fun film. It's very 1995, I think. It's very it's cool because you can kind of feel the difference between each director. So I love how the directors wrote and directed their own room in the story, and I think it's cool because you can really feel that they haven't tried to homogenize it and make it all the same throughout as well. So yeah, that's why I like it. But I'm obviously interested to see what you thought about it, Matt, because it is kind of a film of its time. Like, it's not, I don't know if people would make it today. It's not that they wouldn't or they couldn't, but I think because it is one of those kind of, we're just going to tell you 4 funky stories and follow this kind of weird character of the bellhop anyway around, because he's kind of an odd dude, and that's it. Like, there's no deeper meaning. There's no like super revelation tied in, like a Interstellar or anything. Like, it's just a entertaining, interesting, cool kind of movie, in my mind anyway. Well, how did you go with this, Matt?
Yeah, it's honestly, I had the same thought by watching this. This is I think we talked about this before as well. This is that kind of movie that is just a comedy for entertainment's sake that you don't see nowadays at all, like without a hook, unless you're looking for the deep depths of Netflix or whatever, where they just throw anything out there. But yeah, you go to the cinema, this is not going to be there at all. That's in that sense absolutely like a film of its time. I also feel like the humor and the presentation is so quirky that also feels very much 90s, and I don't think you would really see that nowadays. And that is like a sort of vibe that I it sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't. And this one is kind of like right down the middle with that. This is a film that I have seen around a lot without ever knowing like what's in there. And I do really like the concept of the anthology style for rooms, each like truly manned by one director with presumably all creative liberty like taken
Mm.
into their hands, which is really cool. Uh, and yeah, you said about you could like recognize some of these directors' style and some of these stories. I was trying to guess some of them, but failed miserably. Honestly, like I'm not like hugely familiar with either of these people's work, and so I was watching the third story with the kids being babysit by the main character, and there was so much like stinky foot talk and foot smelling and like whatever. I was like, this gotta be Tarantino, right? This is gotta be because there's the old meme, the old joke that Tarantino has this foot thing going on. Luckily, that
Yeah.
was not the case. As you said, that third story was directed by Rodriguez, which also makes sense. Actually, he has that
Mm.
sort of humor
Well, and
as
they've
well.
they've got a lot of crossover because they've worked together a lot before,
Right,
so
that's
that makes
true.
sense.
Yeah. Now, so if we're going with these four stories, um, I find it actually very interesting that you pointed out the second story as your favorite because that was actually my
Mm.
least favorite. I could not at all get into that situation whatsoever. Like, I'm not even sure what the fuck actually happened. It was some sort of like couple trust test or something. Some weird fucking.
I
Uh,
mean, it's just
I,
basically batshit insane. But the main reason I love that
right.
room is because I love David Priville's performance, who's the main guy in it,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it basically to give a preamble, um, our bellhop Ted kind of goes into the room. He thinks he's got the wrong room, and he goes in, and there's a guy in his underwear pointing a gun at him, and a woman all tied up on a chair, and they
Yeah.
end up in this insane, basically conversation where they're trying to uh, tease apart different questions and answers and things about the scenario without anyone really quite knowing what's going on anyway. And I love the wordplay on it because he immediately comes in and he's like, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. Why'd you sleep with my wife, kind of thing? And
Yeah.
and Ted the bellhop's like, whoa, I don't know what the fuck's going on. He's like, don't lie to me, buddy. And he's like, and it goes on and on. It's just, I think it's such cool performances from the actors in that particular scene, and because it's so, like, you talk about limitations and stuff. There's literally the three people in that scene, and one of them's
Yeah.
tied up and gagged most of the time, so she's not doing much of it anyway. So it's very much carried by the two guys who are doing most of the dialogue and everything. And I love that because it kind of just forces it to be so focused on those two characters. So yeah,
Yeah.
anyway.
That's fair.
But
Yeah,
I
I
can
don't know.
see
I
why
couldn't
it
get
wouldn't
into that
necessarily be a
one.
favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one as well with the Coven of Witches, that was not at all something I expected in this goddamn hotel anthology film. That was quite the way to start this off, and I guess I could see this being maybe put as the first room on purpose because you got a lot of nudity in there. That's gonna get the audience to pay attention early on. I don't know. That was a fine story. But I do believe, for me at least, the third and fourth story kind of like were the highlights of the thing. Uh, the third one with the kids doing all the shenanigans, and those two kids, the boy and the girl,
Mm,
uh, I actually feel like their performances were some of the best in the whole film. They were like actually
absolutely.
awesome
Yeah.
with the stuff they had to deal with as well. They were cool. And um, following it up with the fourth story, I do believe the fourth story could stand honestly as its own thing entirely. It felt to me like the first three rooms were all like fun little stories, but then the fourth one really was genuinely the finale and highlight. It just felt like much bigger, even though even there it was, of course, just a bunch of people talking. But I guess it's also the name power there with Quentin Tarantino actually acting for once. I'm not even sure if I've ever seen that before. And
Well, he
also
tends to act in pretty
uncredited.
much every film he does, but varying size
Really?
roles. So he's one of those directors, like it's a kind of thing that a lot of directors do where they'll appear in their own films a lot. And yeah, so Quentin Tarantino usually has a role in every film. Like if you remember in Pulp Fiction, he was Jimmy, who they go to after the dude gets shot in the car. Yeah, he's in
Uh,
every film basically.
Maybe it's just been
He's one
too
of
long since I've
the
seen a Tarantino film the last time.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's one of the slavers in Django. He's he
Mm.
pops up in everything. He definitely does a lot of acting in this. Like he's almost the main character in
Yeah.
this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he'd have the most dialogue in that scene. Yeah.
Yeah. And he is quite the character. The whole. I do believe in the fourth story that couple of characters, that group, they have like the strongest, most memorable personalities.
Yeah.
And the weirdest fucking dynamics. Um, and yeah, we also have uncredited Bruce Willis in there, which for one, it's like cool to see Bruce Willis in a. At least for me, like he is mostly the action star, so it's rare for me to see a Bruce Willis role where he's just a regular dude talking, which
Yeah.
was fun. And yeah, he is uncredited, which I found interesting. I actually like looked up why that is. It seems like Bruce Willis was doing this role without payment as a favor to Tarantino, and that was not allowed by the Actors Guild. So he was forced to take his name off unless he would be like sued or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
Yeah,
But
interesting.
yeah, this whole flick. Oh yeah, and Tim Roth, who plays the bellhop,
Mm.
he fucking puts 120% into his
Yeah.
performance. He jumps around like a cartoon character. His faces are incredible. Like that, I do give him big props for that performance.
I do love his
However,
performance in this, as weird
Yeah.
as it is. Yeah.
yeah, it honestly kind of makes a lot of the film, in my opinion. However, I did read that originally the role of his character was written for Steve Buscemi, and I have to say, I would pay good money to see that version. I would have loved to see Buscemi in that role. It would be dope.
Yeah. I think it would have been different though. Like I
Yeah,
mean, obviously, yes, but like this is a very, very young Tim Roth as well. And he
Yeah.
obviously, I mean, at the time it would have been early Buscemi as well, or, roughly early Buscemi. They were, and I think it's interesting because they were both lead roles in Reservoir Dogs as well. And the other thing about Four Rooms, which I think perhaps might influence how I see some things, is that it's the production company is Tarantino's production company.
hmm
So even though he's not listed as a producer, it is his company. So a lot of the connections, I guess, are, you know, how you see certain films and or certain people always work together, that sort of thing, because they obviously have those
Yeah.
connections. It doesn't surprise me if Buscemi was on the hook for that initially because he's part of that world. And however,
Yeah.
I do think Tim Roth did a amazing job and a very unique job too, as Buscemi would have, I'm sure. But I really liked the way Tim Roth plays it, and I like his switch up as well, like how he plays this kind of weird, almost cartoony character bellhop. But every now and then when he's pissed off, he just kind of gets down to it and he's this real kind of cockney, serious, just dude who's like, all right, what the fuck's going on kind of thing.
Yeah. It's
And
kind
that
of unpredictable and so on, right? Yeah.
that kind of change up is, I think, quite entertaining. But yeah, he's a kooky character, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. So all in all, this was like a full on. Yeah, I'm not actually sure where I stand on this movie because, like I said, the third and fourth story I did enjoy quite a lot. The first and second, not so much. I'm afraid this is just gonna be a middle of the road one for me.
That's
You know what I mean? That's a shame. Yeah.
Well, because I think part of what I love about this movie is it's one of quote unquote those types of movies where you can really feel that it's made by a bunch of people who love making movies and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, let's do this and let's all get together and work on this movie together and it'll be cool. We'll do a room each and rah, rah, rah. It's kind of one of those sorts of films where it's almost like there are certain bands who don't do very well commercially, but everyone who's ever been in a band loves that band or whatever. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing with this film. It's a real kind of filmmaker film, or a real kind of crafty film in that sense, where if you're into the craft of filmmaking and if you're into making movies and seeing what you can do with sets and different actors and all this kind of stuff, this is really interesting. If you're just looking at it as pure film entertainment, then it would probably be taken quite differently. But, that kind of goes without saying. But I think that part of the interesting part of this film is it is very much like, I guess it's kind of like, it reminds me of when I was younger and doing a lot of theater and interested in films and stuff. And my theater friends and I would make little short movies and things.
Mhm.
And this is the kind of shit that we do. Not saying that it was anywhere near as good as this or anything, but you'd come up with these wacky ideas that are just kind of interesting without necessarily a point, because it's more about the process than anything else. And
Right.
I feel like this is
Yeah.
that kind of film, and this is why it appeals to me, perhaps. I'm guessing there, but yeah.
I'm actually, yeah, you're saying that it's more about the process. I've been thinking, I feel like I would enjoy a making of documentary about this even more than the actual product. I would love to see
Yeah.
how the different directors, um, if at all, they really worked together or whatever. Like, because of course their segments are largely isolated from each other, and I wonder how much overlap and how much communication there actually was between them. I would have really
Yeah.
liked to see also how the in between bits were like concocted and whatever, all the little overlap bits. Is there? Now I wonder if there's like a making of or whatever somewhere on some DVD or maybe.
Yeah, honestly, I have no idea. I've never really looked, but
I
I
would
think you're
really
right. It would be interesting
enjoy
to
that.
see
Yeah.
how it worked functionally, I suppose, and how it came together, considering there's 4 different writers, 4 different directors.
Yeah.
And very much doing their own thing in parts, but not all the time. Because, like you say, there are a bunch of scenes in between each room, and that sort of thing. So
Yeah,
someone had to
who
write that, someone had
actually-
to direct that. So
Yeah.
But the only people listed are our 4 directors. So I feel like my vibe is that Tarantino probably was part of, because it's his production company and everything. I feel like he might have driven all that collaboratively with the others too, I'm sure. But I feel like he might have had his hand in there. Rodriguez probably did some stuff in there as well, because he's that kind of guy. The other 2, like Anders and Rockwell, I'm not super familiar with them personally. I just know a couple of their films, so I'm not really sure how they work anyway. But yeah, I feel like it was probably, there was probably Band Apart, which is Quentin Tarantino's production company. They were probably at the helm of the bigger picture, I would imagine. But the rest of them, I'm guessing, kind of work together in that sense. But yeah. So, like, just as a side, the one of the producers, Lawrence Bender, who has basically produced every Tarantino film, because he is Tarantino's producer basically, and they're mates. So I imagine he would probably have some involvement in that sense, because he's also that kind of producer where he's not just there throwing money at it, see you later. He would be part of the project kind of thing. So that would be my guess anyway, but obviously I'm talking out my ass. I don't know this for sure.
Yeah.
So
It does. I'm also not seeing any like proper making of on any like home release or whatever, which is a shame.
yeah.
There's a 5-minute thing on YouTube that I might look at later, though. That seems to be
Well,
it.
and I guess it's that era too. Like,
Yeah.
not every film had making ofs back in the day, whereas nowadays most of them have got something that goes off on YouTube at least, or something like that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
this is when even I guess DVDs were a thing, but most of those would be like director commentary or that kind of thing.
True. Yeah.
But
Yeah. I do feel like I would maybe actually enjoy that more. The documentary.
Cool.
Damn.
Well, yeah, I'd say that's fair. So you reckon you're about middle of the road for this one?
Sort of, yeah. If we're gonna go with the ratings, I would be around a 6 out of 10, a 3 out of
Okay.
5. Yeah. Like, it's not bad at all, obviously. just not entirely my cup of tea. The
Yeah.
humor and all. Uh, I'm assuming you are way higher than that.
This is this is a 5 out of 5. This is perfect.
Oh man, that high.
Yeah, I've
That's
seen this
wild.
movie hundreds of times and I still love it.
That's
And
cool.
I love because it's so. And again, this is just the way I take it, obviously. But I love the pacing because you can really feel the beats kind of when they
Yeah.
happen. That's what I mean. You can really, if you pay attention, you can, and maybe because I've seen it multiple times and I know it very intimately, like I probably could quote the whole script to you.
Mm.
But it's one of those films where I feel like you can feel the hand that's written it, and you can feel that there's an intention, but behind the direction and the choices made with the camera, and even the casting and that sort of thing. Because it's got a huge cast because there's lots and lots of characters, but I feel like everyone's cast well. There's no real weak points in the cast, and it all ties together so I think beautifully. And it's it's just one of those films that you watch and you go, man, filmmaking's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see
and
that. Yeah.
so it really does excite me. I do love watching this film because I was really happy to watch it again for this because again, and it doesn't outstay its welcome either. It's only like an hour and a half. Like it's not a super long film.
True.
So, that means like each story is like a 15-20 minute story and that's it kind of thing. So it's just an interesting kind of different way of making a film, I think, and not one that would necessarily always get greenlit or backed because it's the kind of film that it feels very indie in that sense. Like it doesn't feel like there's any kind of blockbuster kind of backing or commercialism behind the film as well. And I really like that too. It's like people making movies just because they love making movies and storytelling and that sort of thing. So that's why I dig it. I think it's really, really cool. But I definitely know it's not everyone's cup of tea because it is a bit weird as well at points. So
Yeah. It has a certain vibe.
Yeah. Well, but I like that, like you say, with the nudity and the witches story, or I think the extreme absurdity of the Rodriguez story with the kids who are fucking around.
Yeah.
Like it never actually feels gratuitous though. Like it feels like it's part of the plot, and they haven't held back.
Yeah.
But it's not like they've gone, oh, look how edgy it is. It's very much, no, this is just the fucked up story we're telling kind of thing. So
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, I'll take the 6 for that. I know it's not a big score for you, but that's okay. You weren't alive.
At least I didn't give it
a.
At least I didn't give it
like
4. For the 4
a
rooms.
teenager in the 90s.
Yeah. Well, dude, I was 2 years old when this film came out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and I think that, and I'm going to talk about that a bit in our next film too. But I think timing has a lot to do with a lot of stuff, and I've kind of thought that over many episodes that we've done together when we started talking about things. Not to highlight, oh, I'm older or you're younger or anything like that. It's more just timing. But it's like whatever the timing is, like us having different timings for certain films, especially older stuff or stuff that was around when we were younger. It does kind of affect how you appreciate it or how you approach it, I guess. So, and I think that's part of this as well. Like, this is my kind of film because it's my kind of era too, and it's 1995 is like smack bang in my decade. So,
right.
But anyway, let us move on.
Yeah, we're moving on to 2007, which is my kind of decade, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see what you mean. My flick is REC, REC, short for recording, I'm assuming. Released in 2007, a Spanish horror film, a found footage flick, directed by, I might mess up some pronunciations here. Directed by Jaume Balaguero and Paco Plaza, who also wrote The Thing together with a person named Luiso Badejo. Starring a whole bunch of people who most of them don't even have another credit, so these are not like big names, including Manuela Velasco, Ferran Terraza, Martha Carbonell, David Verret, Carlos Lazarte, Pablo Rosso, Vicente Gil, and a bunch of other people. Again, like this is not a major motion picture or whatever, although it did eventually become one with its like cult status that grew later on.
It's like a whole series now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's like 4 or 5 movies.
Yeah. Sorry, not to interrupt.
But yeah, so this film is again, like I said, a found footage flick. As we follow a 2-person team of TV reporters. You know, we got the lady in front of the camera and the guy behind the camera. That's our 2 main characters, and they are on at work, following a couple firemen as they do their job for some small morning news TV show or whatever, no big production or whatever. They just are there to report on the regular life and day of the firemen. And after the first couple minutes, they get called to a case and at an apartment building where shit goes down unexpectedly, as is revealed that there is a sort of vague kind of virus going on, turning people into flesh-eating zombies or whatever. It's all very unexplained. Point is that people are getting sick and dangerous, and people are starting to die as they are stuck in this apartment building while being quarantined from the outside by some government force or whatever. Nobody knows what's going on. And we all watch this from the point of view of the panicked cameraman that was trying to just film this for some TV news segment, stuck in the middle of this. So this is a perfect setup for a found footage film. We have It's a very, very clean setup for a found footage film. We have a very believable point of view for the shaky cam. And the obligatory found footage shaky cam is also a little bit alleviated with this one, because we are not following some kid with a digicam like some Blair Witch Project style, but we actually have a professional dude carrying the camera. So it is not as, wildly chaotic as maybe other films in the subgenre. Of course, there's still the obligatory shaky cam to hide some seams in the production or whatever. That's just, you could just have to have that. Also to just keep up the atmosphere of the panic and paranoia around the people. But this whole film generally just captures really well all of these oppressive feelings of being stuck in this random apartment building with a mysterious threat going around as people drop one by one, basically, with nobody really knowing what's going on. The intentional lack of any exposition not only lends itself for the authenticity of this found footage thing, but also just it makes sense to not know what's going on, just like the characters, because if you had an explanation of why this is happening, this wouldn't be that scary. You're generally just looking at found footage, raw found footage. That's like the idea. And it's made very well. I do remember back in 2007, I was a teenager, so I was absolutely in at the height of my gore houndness or whatever. I wanted to see the spookiest, nastiest shit. And this film does also have some good practical gore effects, I want to say, that are only enhanced by the unclean shaky cam. But that aside, I remember at the time this was my favorite horror film for a long fucking time, and it really rivaled or maybe not rival Blair Witch Project, but it, in my eyes, like stood very like on the same pedestal as Blair Witch Project. It was a great successor to that iconic found footage legend that did a lot of the same things right and even build on it. Um, and over the years, I've watched this so many times that it never let off its steam, so to say. And even now, I the last time I watched this film was in 2014, and now 11 years later, this is my first rewatch since then. And I still absolutely adore this film for how well it does this one thing it sets out to do. It's still, in my book, one of the best found footage horror films of all time, which is
Damn.
similar to the bottle movie subgenre. The found footage subgenre is one of my favorite things because I like how it plays with the point of view and the attempted authenticity of not being a fictional story. You know, that sort of trick or whatever you want to call it. And this film just does it also well. The last 10 minutes or so are also like some of the most iconic horror movie visuals for me that will never leave my brain. Uh, that you did already mention that there are a bunch of sequels, which is a wild thing to me as well. This first film was, like I said, directed and written by two people, and it seems I haven't seen all the sequel, but it's actually interesting that at some point these two people like kind of split off and made their own sequels to this, which probably follow then completely different ideas. I remember seeing a couple of them that even like abandoned the found footage element completely, which is kind of a lame thing to do. But the first Wreck is still like top tier horror for me. And I do expect you to be on a completely different tone with this, but I am so curious to hear what the fuck you thought about any of this bullshit.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. We had very different experiences, I think, with this film, and I've been trying to think of why as well, like, and trying to tease out why, because I think that's the interesting part. I initially thought I wouldn't like this film because I don't like, I'm not a big horror guy. Especially I'm not a big found footage guy. Although I do really like Blair Witch, but I'll get to that more in a
thank
sec.
God. Yeah.
And I watched Blair Witch again recently because I tend to watch it around Halloween just because it's probably one of my favorite horror films ever. Even though now I still kind of hate found footage films. But anyway, so I didn't really get into this film, let's say. I didn't enjoy it. But not for the reasons I thought I wouldn't. As in, the horror elements didn't bother me. I actually really liked, you mentioned the ending. I really liked that end sequence when they're in that particular apartment. I think that was awesome. That was probably the best part of the entire film. Like, I love the monster design. I love the pacing of it and all that kind of thing. I like that it wasn't as frantic, shaky cam. Like, there was a lot of still moments because they're trying to be still so they can't get detected. And yeah, I loved all that. That was great. Creepy, no doubt, but I liked that. I thought that was the strongest point of the whole film.
Fair, yeah.
However, the rest of it, I think to describe how much I hated the rest of it, I have to talk about why I love Blair Witch so much.
Yes, okay.
Because, again, I think timing is a big thing here. Because I remember when Blair Witch came out and it was in the cinemas, and I went with my friends to see it in the cinemas. And I remember the genius marketing behind it that can never be repeated, because it was genuinely, and I mean this genuinely, like, people think, oh, yeah, and blah, blah. But this is before the internet was so big. This is way before social media, anything like that. There was the internet, and that's part of how they marketed it so well. But literally, you'd have conversations with people about whether this was actually real or not.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, anyone who's seen the Blair Witch will know there's nothing in Blair Witch that is implausible. Basically, everything about that movie is implied, and even the very ending where you get some shots of weird shit, it's not stuff that can't be explained away or has to be special effects or something. Whereas and I'm not criticizing it, but the end of this film, obviously there's a lot of stylization there, and there's a lot of design in the monster and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff that you end up seeing. So it's not something that I would ever think, oh, maybe that's real. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's fine though, because I don't need that. But part of what made Blair Witch so special, I think, at the time when it was released, was that conversation where literally it took about a year after it came out before the makers actually said, no, it's all fake, it's all made up, it's all fiction. This is not actual footage, because they made it in such a way that not just because it was found footage, but the marketing they put up as well. Like they literally built websites to support the legend of the Blair Witch, which is what the kids in the movie are trying to do a movie on. So they made these weird websites which were just had nothing to do with the movie,
Yeah.
you know, overtly, but were about the legend of the Blair Witch and other kind of people who were investigating it and that sort of thing. So when you went and saw the movie and saw, wow, I wonder if this is real or not, and then went online to try and research it, you basically got a bunch of fake websites telling you that it was real. So
Yeah.
so that kind of made it even more convincing and all this kind of stuff. So I feel like Blair Witch no one else can ever make Blair Witch ever again
No.
because Blair Witch exists. So unfortunately, that's kind of the struggle that every found footage film is ever, especially horror films, are always going to have, is the fact that Blair Witch nailed it and were kind of like the creators of that convincing, authentic kind of nature of the genre. But we all know now that everything that comes after it is fiction, so it's a different take. Not saying that's a bad thing, but I think it's an important thing, especially I've from hearing other people talk and all this kind of stuff, especially about Blair Witch, people who were around and saw it in cinemas and experienced that kind of zeitgeist of, is it real, is it not, actually talking to people, like it was the hype of the moment where everyone was saying, is this actually real, like what an amazing movie that they managed to put it together with all this real footage and blah 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 blah, until the penny dropped and we all went, oh yeah, okay, it's a movie, isn't that genius?
Yeah.
So I think if you experience that, that's going to shape how you experience every other found footage film that comes after it. Or if you didn't experience that firsthand and you go and watch Blair Witch, say 10 years after it came out, knowing that it's a fictional film or this kind of thing, that it actually made heaps of money because it cost them like 30 grand to make, but they made millions, all that kind of stuff. Yes, that will shape your perspective on, I think, the genre and on Blair Witch itself, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I kind of went a bit of a rant there about it, because I feel like that shapes my appreciation of pretty much every uh, found footage film ever, because none of them stack up to Blair Witch.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
even from a filmmaking perspective, I think, because one of the genius things about Blair Witch, and I was thinking about this last time I watched it, not that I'm going to just talk about Blair Witch, don't worry, we'll get back to the actual but one of the genius things about it, which I found disappointing in Rec or Record, whatever you want to call it, was that for the whole film, you never see a monster, you never see the Blair Witch, you never see anything until the very last like scene or bit of footage, and that's where you see a flash of something. And that film is the tensest, most, you end up with sore shoulders after watching it because you're so on the edge of your seat throughout. And the genius of it, I think, is that they never actually show you the monster. So the monster you imagine is always worse than the one that you see. And, there are some scares, there's some jump scares here and there, but they're nothing, major. It's not like, oh, oogity boogity scary kind of thing. It's just
Yeah.
legitimately the kind of things that would go through your head if you're camping out in the middle of the woods and you're scared.
Yeah.
These are the kind of things that might happen. So I found that a bit disappointing about this one, because very, very quickly it's like, oh, here be zombies, and here be more
Yeah.
zombies, and all that kind of thing. So I think that's why the horror didn't quite hit for me, because I'm much more of my imagination will scare the shit out of me, but way more than any kind of filmmaker can. So if it's implied threat or an invisible monster or something, I find that way more scary, I suppose, than something like this where you actually see them up front. The only time that they got me in this film was there's a jump scare right at the end of that last bit where they go up into an attic, and I'm just seeing if you remember what I'm talking about. Basically, in that final apartment where all the shit gets revealed about how it all worked, they go up into an attic, and the cameraman literally like points his camera up there and like pans it around. I'm like, okay, something's going to pop out. Sure enough, something pops out. And that genuinely, like, I felt a shiver down my spine and jumped out of my seat, even though I was sitting there waiting for it to happen. So, good on them for that. They succeeded there. But but otherwise, yeah, it was just kind of interesting. But I find that shaky cam stuff and all that kind of quote unquote found footage tropes, I find them really hard to watch and really annoying to watch, I guess. Like, I don't like shaky cam. And this is, you surprised me by saying that this is like not as shaky, but I'm like, man, it's fucking shaky. Like
10% less shaky than the average.
Yeah, but it still seemed fucking shaky to me.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing that, well, to add on to that, because again, I was watching it thinking, why am I not digging this? Why am I not getting hooked? Because they weren't doing anything wrong. Like they were good performances. It's an interesting story, rah rah rah. But I think the other thing I didn't like was a lot of not so much the audio mixing, but the fact that they're just so. I'd love to see how many minutes there are of people just screaming and shouting in that film.
Yeah.
Because it seemed never ending. And another genre of films that I really am not big on is the whole disaster movie thing, because I hate the whole groups of people who are in peril acting out that story. Like, to me, it's very much, that's when it becomes people acting and not believable for me, because when there's a bunch of people standing around being all melodramatic and like, some of them are going insane because, I can't handle this threat, or some of them like get really serious and like, I'm going to take control, and some of them just scream their head off, and it's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, this is all just fucking annoying. Like, and
but
so
if I'm allowed to like interject there,
absolutely.
I do think in this case, at least some of them is alleviated by the excuse that here is an actual like professional reporter asking them questions, and these people are then, it's natural for them to be a bit performative when they talk to the camera on purpose. So I feel like that kind of worked in a lot of places.
But I guess when I think about it, it's not any of those sorts of sequences either. It's pretty much the action and the amount that everyone's just literally just yelling and screaming and stuff. And it's kind of like, it went from kind of frantic to everyone's just screaming their head off, like, and that's it. And to me, that's just, that doesn't vibe with me very well, unfortunately. And I think of it is like the disaster movie thing where, you think about any number of scenes where there's a big city and there's not a moral panic, but there's a literal panic from the citizens, and everyone's, trying to run around and survive and all this kind of stuff. I'm never a fan of those sorts of movies or scenes, because to me, they just seem like the most disingenuous bullshit. Who knows that people would act like this anyway? And we've seen from disasters and stuff how people would act, and it's not like the movies. And, like the Ground Zero and 9/11 and all that kind of thing, like people were pretty together and kind of kept their cool, and obviously it was horrific, and people were upset and traumatized and all that kind of thing. Like, I'm not taking that away from it, but as far as the way that people act en masse, they tend to pull together and do pretty well, whereas movies always show people panicking and freaking out, and that being its own issue as well as whatever the issue is. And I'm not saying that's obviously unilateral for everybody, but I think that's why I don't really buy it so much, and why I don't really get into those sorts of disaster movie kind of tropes, because to me it's just like, this doesn't compute. Like, this just seems like overacting and melodrama, basically, and not in a self-aware way, like in a way that's trying to be authentic and like super serious. And it's like, what a pain in the ass. So I think those two things together, like the found footageness, the shaky cam, and the whole, disaster movie element, survival kind of thing, really didn't work in this movie's favor while I was watching it. um, because yeah.
I wanna actually go back to the Blair Witch stuff and the way we experienced that in different ways. You had the privilege that I'm very like jealous of to actually experience that shit when it was, coming out with all the
Yeah.
authentic trickery and whatever. I, of course, being younger, I came to the film knowing everything about it, but I remember still being, even in hindsight, even learning about the things about the marketing and all of the in later years.
Yeah.
Even then, I remember being like genuinely impressed and loving it all. I remember watching the making of on the DVD of Blair Witch Project, which is so cool as well because the like quote unquote actors were only given piece by piece like GPS data and whatever where to go next and just like a few rough points of what to do and what to expect. Like so much of that is genuinely like just improvisation by these people and them not actually knowing what the fuck is going on, which of course lent itself so well to the authenticity of that production. I'm totally with you that whole thing, the way that storm built out of all these different elements could never be replicated. But that still only like enhanced my appreciation for this stupid subgenre. Even going on to Rec, 100% you have to deliberately like consciously have to do a bunch of suspension of disbelief with this film. Of course, you have to play with them to actually like be able to take in this Rec nonsense as anything effective at all. But I think like for me, being someone who came into this subgenre learning the tricks behind the scenes from the get-go through Blair Witch Project and its behind the scenes information. I go into Rec watching it and like kind of admiring the production of that as well. The shaky cam, the way the shaky cam is used on purpose to, like I said, hide the seams and whatever. I love like looking out for that things, for the hidden cuts or whatever. It's all more calculated than I think a lot of people would care to pay attention to. At least when we're talking to like about casual audiences. I love how the filmmakers are challenged to produce a calculated presentation while still keeping alive the chaos of that unprofessional point of view with the handheld camera and all of that stuff. I recognize that none of that might convince somebody to be like an authentic found footage in any way, but I love the craft that goes into it, trying just to give the vibe, even if it's not actually convincing. And it's a special kind of filmmaking, special kind of production due to this weird concept and point of view that I just really love how people handle it behind the scenes. And yeah, we both love Blair Witch Project. I love that for you that kind of de-hanced every found footage film afterwards, and for me it kind of enhanced every found footage film.
And I'd like to just add as well, like, it's not that I don't appreciate the genre in that sense. Like, I do appreciate, it's a lot of work. It's probably more work to do a found footage film and not have it be just awful.
Yeah.
So as much as I didn't enjoy it because I don't enjoy that kind of style, it's definitely a stylistic choice that I think isn't done lightly. And, you know, because it can be very off-putting. I know lots of people who don't like found footage stuff, and to go back to Blair Witch, there were people who watched it in the cinema and actually threw up and everything because it was so disorienting. And there are those sorts of stories as well. But I do appreciate it as an art form in that sense. And that's again, like, I'm not the biggest horror fan, but I do think horror is a very interesting genre from an art perspective and from a craft perspective, because it's obviously asking things that are not done in other films. So, and it also has a lot more, in some ways, it's got a lot more space for creativity and stylized kind of execution of things and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's not like, oh, nothing ever will add up to Blair Witch or something. It's for me, it's more, I guess, maybe I've got a very small cup for these sorts of things, and Blair Witch filled it fine, and that's that.
Fair, yeah.
And again, I understand there's a suspension of disbelief, and like, yeah, of course, nothing's ever going to be original or confuse me and go, oh, maybe this is real or not.
Yeah.
Because there's only a few times where I've genuinely been hoodwinked into thinking something was real, and well, there's two I can think of, one being Blair Witch and the other one being the Lonely Girl 15 series on YouTube when YouTube was really, really young.
Right.
So Google that if anyone is interested.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, yeah, of course, I love suspending disbelief. I love hearing wacky tales. I think of it in a way kind of like art, like just because you're using abstraction as opposed to realism doesn't mean that's bad. Like it's actually quite hard to do abstract art really well from a fine art perspective, like paintings. And, it's not just as random and silly as a lot of people might see it, because it looks simplistic in a lot of ways. But like with anything, like even architecture or anything, like minimalism is often the hardest thing to do. So just because it doesn't necessarily look complex or, heavy-handed in effort or whatever, doesn't mean it's not. As in, there's usually a lot of effort to go in to make it not look like it's heavy-handed. So,
yeah.
So I guess that's my long way of saying that. No, I do appreciate the genre, and I think this is probably a good found footage film. Like I don't dispute that at all. I think it just comes down to more my own personal taste, and like I say, it just didn't hook me. And the things I didn't like about it were more because perhaps it didn't just gel with me, or didn't, fit something that, or I could think of a way that I would have preferred maybe, or something like that. But I don't know. It's hard to say because I never like, part of me is kind of like, if I don't like something, it's like, okay, it just didn't gel with me. That's cool. I don't tend to think about or try and search about why so much, because who knows? And also that I'm not criticizing the film in that sense. Like it's a well put together film. It's well made. All the performances are very, they give their all, they do their thing. That's cool. It just, for me, it was just like, ugh, all right.
Love that.
And that's, I guess I'm just trying to be nice and say like, even when I complain about films and I say, oh, this is a shit film, I don't mean that the people who made it or the people responsible for it are shit. It just means that in my mind, for me personally, I thought it was shit. I'm more of a subjective reviewer in that sense. Like I look at it from my perspective, not an objective, well, what does everyone think about this? Because I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But so I like to kind of, I guess, be clear about that too. Like this could be the best found footage film ever, but for me, it just didn't gel, and I didn't really like it that much. Although I do say, I'd like to just another shout out to that final sequence where it's in night vision mode.
Yeah.
Love that. That was great. That was like, video games have been inspired by this kind of thing, because I love the monster design. I love the tension that's built there, because they slow it down a lot too. There isn't so much screaming and everything like there is in the rest of the film. There's a bit of lore in there too. Like there's a bit of world building because of the location they're in, and they find out a lot of stuff about what's actually happening. And, I thought, that last sequence of however long it was, pure, like, awesome. That was really good. Like, definitely the highlight of the film, and definitely the strongest part of the film. And, maybe it wouldn't have hit so hard if it didn't have all the preceding parts, whether I like them or not. But that was definitely a very good ending to the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that even you like felt so strongly about that ending. Yeah, like I said, those last 10 minutes or whatever have always like been stuck with me as one of the most iconic like horror movie finales I've seen. Yeah, it's really strong. I also want to like point out real quick that I do also, there's definitely flaws in the filmmaking that even I dislike. Well, especially there's one moment that I hate where they, after like a big scary moment or whatever, one of the characters goes to the cameraman and says, rewind, show me that again. And we actually get to see the tape rewound, and it makes literally zero sense for us to see that as a as people looking at this found footage or
Yeah,
whatever.
because it suddenly throws you out of the perspective of the cameraman. And suddenly you're like an editor sitting at a desk looking at a screen.
Yeah.
Like, because they rewind
But
it
even
and
then,
they don't compensate for the time difference or anything. Yeah, I agree. That was
yeah,
not a
why
good
would we see a
idea.
recording of the rewound act? Like, it makes no sense. And I don't even know why that decision was made, because I also don't think that adds much in the moment there, other than seeing the scary moment again, I guess. That is like the one of the big question marks for me with this movie.
I feel like they were just trying to do the whole like, oh, we didn't notice something first time, but now we're looking at the footage from like 2 minutes ago and we realize something scary happened that might affect us now, kind of thing, like 2 minutes later. That's, the best justification I come up with. But yeah, you're right. That was probably the weakest part of the film.
Yeah, that was.
It was an odd decision because also it's isolated too. Like, it's not like they're doing that throughout the film. And it messes with the timeline in that sense where, like you say, everything's kind of presented as a realistic kind of timeline, as these films are. And almost even lots of one-shots, or appearing to be lots of one-shots and stuff, because it's a dude holding a camera and you're seeing what's on the camera.
Yeah.
And then, you get this kind of third person removed, rewinding the footage and then watching it again, but not actually then catching up with the timeline. And yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
It definitely felt odd.
Yeah. I also I remember the second film, the first sequel, actually continues the story immediately after the first film. Like, it's the same apartment building, the same people and everything. But there we get to the POV is changed to like shoulder cameras of like a SWAT team kind of deal, where we switch through the different POVs of the different people.
Yeah.
And of course, we're not talking about that film. It's also been an eternity since I've seen that. But like that sort of thing, the use of specific POVs for this like filmmaking challenge, I love that sort of shit. I'm actually now hyped to see that again.
When we were talking about sequels and stuff, I actually was thinking I can see how they could do a decent sequel, like pick it up as a sequel kind of thing, because when the first film, this film ends, there isn't like a resolution that now they have to kind of explain away, or they do kind of end in the middle of the whole disaster, so you could pick that up and run with it. Sure.
True.
So I actually think it's a perfect film to pick up and make sequels of. And like you say, having different perspectives as well makes sense in that. Like, okay, we got these two people's perspective and their story. Now we're going to pick it up with someone else's footage, like a body cam or whatever. And that could work really well. I actually think makes sense.
I need to rewatch that sequel. But I guess that is the first original rec. Generally, like, there's such a big cult status about this film. Like, people love this shit.
I've definitely heard of it, and I've seen the poster before, and all this kind of stuff. Probably just me not really looking at horror films. I've just never bothered with it. But I've definitely seen it around, so that doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah. I'm sure it's very popular.
Oh yeah. So, what would you give it in a number then? Like, is it even an average, middle of the road, or is it lower?
It's lower, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay.
For me, the decision is whether to do. It's between a 3 or a 4 out of 10.
Shit.
Like a 1.5 or a 2 out of 5.
Shit.
Mostly because, if that last sequence didn't exist, it'd be a flat out like 1.5 star, whatever. Like, I did not like this film. And that's what I mean. It's more, I rate things more about my own experiential kind of reaction to stuff rather than an objective or an attempted objective, view of it. So for me, yes, this was a very low rating film. I would probably give it about a 3 or a 4 out of 10. I'm kind of on the fence between them. 4 kind of feels like a bit too much when I think about it. 3 kind of feels more solid about where I would go, I think. But having said that, there are some good points in it. Like I say, that last sequence was cool. Like I said, I very much love the monster design, basically.
Yeah.
But then there's all the other stuff, like, hated the shaky cam, hated all the screaming and the melodrama, and because the audio mix kind of is very in your face in that sense as well. Because when you're trying to make it look amateurish, I wish they wouldn't make the audio so amateurish as well, because audio is such an off-putting thing if it's not done
Yeah.
well. And there are some parts in this where it's like super quiet for ages, and then suddenly everyone's screaming their head off like piercingly in the mix. And I'm like, whoa, dude, so let's just dial that back a little bit. And it was just more off-putting than anything. And I really didn't enjoy that part of it, I think, more than anything. So
Yeah. I think that's a popular opinion. Yeah.
How about you as a fan?
Yeah, well, I yeah, genuinely I still adore this film. I do have some gripes with it, so I wouldn't call this perfect. And I agree with you that it doesn't reach the heights of Blair Witch Project. But I love this production, and I will probably always love this production, so I'm putting that at a 9 out of 10. This is forever one of my favorite horror films still. It's
Right
dope as heck.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
it
great.
would be
I
a
love
wild
that.
ride to see the Rex situation in the Four Rooms Hotel with those characters. They should make a crossover with that.
Oh yeah, they might be able to. Yeah.
Yeah. Guess that's.
I also think, just as a final thought, I suppose, like, because found footage stuff is often, it's presented as trying to be presented as authentic or, almost documentary style. But even then, like mockumentaries or fake documentaries and stuff it's a real art to get those right, because if you don't, it's fucking stupid and awful. But if you get it right, it's amazing, and really cool. So I get the appeal and the genre, I guess, in that sense. But I also think it's very, very, on the edge as far as whether it hits or not for certain people. Or like we just see between you and I, like, obviously it hits for you. Totally. Doesn't really hit for me.
I do believe found footage is one of the most divisive subgenres out there. It's very much a love or hate it thing. Yeah. Understandably so.
Interesting though. Again, even I've said it a number of times with like the films we've watched and everything. I never would have watched this if you hadn't told me to. So that's cool. I'm glad I've been exposed to it and I know what the deal is, even if it's not my favorite. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and I love your perspective on it as a Blair Witch Project truther.
Well, I mean, man, we're not talking about Blair Witch, but
clearly not.
I've seen that film so many times. Again, I know it back to front. It still sends a chill down my spine at the end. It still has me on the edge of my seat, full of tension throughout the whole thing, even though I know exactly what's going to happen. And I think that's genius. Like, yeah. So,
Right. Yeah. Anyway. Let's move on to announcing the subject of next episode, which is going to be independent/low budget flicks. A huge pool of weird shit to pull from. Let me hear your pick first.
All right. So I will preface this by saying the film that I've picked, because when we were talking about low budget, we kind of, semi-agreed that under $1 million budget is probably what we'd consider low budget or thereabouts. Like if you're a bit over, whatever. But if, typically I was looking at things and looking at a bunch of different films, and I was looking at, how much they were made for and all that kind of thing. And some that I thought were pretty low budget were actually like a few $1 million or something. So I kind of thought, I'm going to stick with one that's actually under $1 million, because obviously films cost a lot. Like we were saying, Blair Witch was weird, because I think, but even that one cost $30,000, I think, to make, which I don't really know how, because I don't understand the cost of filmmaking really. But obviously these things cost money.
In there. Yeah.
Well, potentially, yeah. Because that's why it's like one of the highest grossing films ever, because it didn't necessarily make billions of dollars, but percentage wise, they got like 300,000 percentage of back on their investment. Anyway, not talking about Blair Witch. So the film that I have selected was made for approximately 750,000 Australian dollars. So that, means less in American dollars. It was also shot in about 11 days, and it has since become one of the, if not the biggest classic Australian film that's ever been made.
Ooh.
And I'm not talking about
Kangaroo
Crocodile Dundee
Jack. Oh.
or Kangaroo Jack. No, this one is from 1997, and it's a film called The Castle. And I am extremely interested to see how this lands for you. I'm not going to tell you anything about it because I just want you to watch it. But as this is where, without sounding weird, I'm fascinated to see how it lands with someone from a different culture,
right,
who's not Australian, because I feel like this film is so full of Australian culture and humor and references and, tropes and that sort of thing, that I do wonder how well it might land overseas. Just like anything, like, something that's super, super French. I'm interested in how it will land outside of France or, whatever. So I'm really excited to be able to get you to watch this film, because it is like, if you ask any Australian what is like the best Australian film ever made, a big percentage of them are going to tell you this film. I guarantee it, without a doubt. It's like ubiquitous with Australian cinema.
I think this is also the first Australian film in general that we put here, right?
Yeah, it might be.
So, like, either way, I'm like definitely very curious about seeing some proper Australian kino. I'm expecting a lot of shrimps on the barbie and whatever. So this is gonna be. I'm very curious about this. I've never heard of this. Definitely.
See, that in itself is interesting to me, because this is like, I mean, it's not. I'm not surprised. Like it wouldn't surprise me if you came back and said, "What the fuck was that film, dude?" Like, 1 out of 10 didn't like it, and that's okay, because it is such an Australian film. I should note as well, just for my fellow Australian listeners, a white Australian film, because I think sometimes we get confused because there's some really fucking good Indigenous Australian films that have a whole different culture that they refer to, because we are one of those colonial countries where we have an Indigenous population and a colonized population. So yeah, with all the difficulties that come with that, So this is definitely one of the most quintessential white Australian cultural films. So I'm fascinated to see what you think of it, really.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this as well. Now, my pick, though. So you were talking about budgets, about specific budgets. There is no specific number in existence for my pick, but it is a completely like shoestring digicam dude filming his neighbors kind of deal. So it's definitely under $1 million. I am forcing you to watch the insane, iconic nonsense that is Trailer Town from 2003 by Giuseppe Andrews. I'm not expecting you to ever have heard of this film or the person behind it. It is batshit insanity of some guy. Giuseppe Andrews made like 50 films or whatever just by filming his neighbors in a trailer park and whatever, with some rough experimental plots here and there. It's all about the weird characters that are probably not even characters, just real people with a bit of a script or whatever. And Trailer Town, I've seen this a couple times a couple years ago, and it's one of the craziest fucking things I've ever seen when it comes to movies. And I always love when I have a chance to force people to see it as well. It's nasty, it's filthy, it's fucking nuts. It's gonna be.
It says it's a comedy drama, so I'm not too put off by it.
You might be put off by it when you put it on. Don't. Yeah. Also, this was apparently like published by Troma at some point. I don't know how they found this, but that is like the way that this got a proper physical release at some point. But you will be able to easily find this on like archive.org or even YouTube. Somehow there is YouTube uploads, even though there's content in that film that would not ever be, good to go according to YouTube's policies and whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot on YouTube
it's out there.
Doesn't fit YouTube.
Yeah.
No, interesting. I'll definitely check it out. I'm just looking at our Letterboxd, and I can see you've got a couple of reviews there, which I won't read until I've seen it. You've obviously rewatched this a few times.
Oh yeah, it's wild fucking shit. Only
Awesome.
600 people have logged this on Letterboxd too, so this is a bit of a deep cut for sure.
Yeah. Showing your power user status.
My Letterboxd power user status, yeah.
Yeah.
I know what's good. I know the hidden gems.
No, awesome. I look forward to it. I love a surprise.
Oh yeah. Good.
Cool. So yeah, a couple of interesting ones to check out, dear listeners, before next time, if you so desire.
Exactly.
Shall we announce our plans? Because why not?
Right. Yeah, so we are planning on finishing this little project we have going on towards the end of the year. And for that, we are going to do, obviously, next episode, we are still doing this low budget theme. After that is going to be the last ever episode, where we are going to be signing off subjectively correct. And we are going to not spin a wheel for a random subject as we usually do for that, but we will just gonna bring each a film that we just want to show the other person for whatever reason, just a free for all, and then that's gonna be the end of subjectively correct.
Because I mean, I think I can speak for both of us that we both enjoy kind of having a natter about films every now and then, but. Life is life as well. So we've kind of, thought, well, we're about, it feels like we're about done. So, just wrap it up in the next couple of episodes. I already know what I'm going to bring you in the last episode, which will be our, whatever you want kind of style thing. Well, to say that I've got two to pick from. One of them is another very Australian film. So I might do that just for the fun of it. But yeah, I'm interested to see what you'll bring as well with such an open slate.
Well, for now, I got Kangaroo Jack on my mind, so we'll see what happens with that.
I can happily say that none of the films I will ever show you are like Kangaroo Jack. That
what a
shit
bummer.
is,
What a masterpiece that one is. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting finale. I don't have a concrete plan yet for that. I'm going to have to do some proper good research for a Josh title.
Hell
But yeah, I mean, we did 2 full years. I honestly am pretty proud of that. So I don't have any gripes with ending it at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's, we started this just because we thought it'd be fun and it has been.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just go, yep, that's enough of that.
Yep. That's it.
I think that's about where we're getting. So yeah. But I have to say as well, I love all, as much as we've had divisive things and like, this, we'll probably talk about this later on the last episode, but like this episode's films and stuff, like obviously there's a lot of films I've watched because of doing this that I never would have watched, and I just fucking love that anyway. Whether I like them or not, it doesn't matter because I'm just glad to get to experience that stuff, and that was part of the reason to do it in the first place. So yeah, that's cool.
100% truth. So for now, we are gonna sign out. We will all hear each other next time for the independent / low budget talk.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like it'll be
for
fun
one last regular episode. Yeah, I think that's gonna be a wild one.
Because I already hate the cover of this movie, like the poster.
Yeah. All right, and that's gonna be it for now, everybody. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
See you later.